Okay. Hey everyone. So I'm Dave. We'll be starting the workshop in a while. Let's say 5 minutes, right? Let's just wait for 5 minutes to let people come in, right? And then we will start right away. Okay, so we will start in less than a minute. Let me know if I can be heard properly, loudly in the live chat. Okay. Thank you, Anthony and Mustur, for the response. All right. Yeah. Cool. So first of all, thank you all guys for being here. I'm sure this workshop will get you some learnings. Right. So before we start, I just want to talk a little bit about our Discord server, right? So if you haven't joined yet, I suggest you do. We are about to be a strong 100. So we have 93 at the moment. So soon gonna hit 100. And yeah, you can see, right? We are trying to be active. We share our learnings over here in this channel, and we have been working on few initiatives that is going to add value to you every day for either your learnings or your career. That's the idea. So yeah, the link is in the video description as well to join the server. You could click on that link and you can join the server as well. Yep. So on the server you can also post your queries, questions, doubts, or anything you have. Give us feedback on how we can improve the channel, right? Yeah, and also likewise try to add value to the community as well. Okay, cool. So that's out of the way now. Now let's go over the agenda we have for this day, right? For the day one of our workshop. So first we're gonna start setting up all the necessary tools. So basically we'll need two of those things. We will need Node installed and a code editor of any of your choice. For in this workshop I will be using VS Code, but you are free to use any of the editor of your choice. Cool. Then we will go on to talk about what are we going to build, right? What does it do, what's the flow of it, all about the application. After that we will discuss the technologies we'll be using, right? Everything from front end to back end, what are the tools we will use, that. So the two major things we'll use is the NextJS and the Firebase. The Firebase is going to be covered in the next workshop. So in this workshop, so we have React Basics and Next Basics. So in React Basics, we'll learn a little bit about React and why we use it, and about JSX, and two of the most commonly and used hooks called useState and useEffect. Then we'll go into learning basics of the Next.js. So the folder structure of the Next.js that it provides and works on. Okay, one second. I should have been sharing this. Yep, that's good. Yeah, so I was saying we'll start with folder structure of Next.js basics. Then we will learn how we can access URL parameters with the Next router. Then we will build a sample page to demonstrate how the routing works in Next.js. And we'll also learn a little bit about Next.js API routes, right? After that, we will learn a little bit about SSD, SSR, why we need it, and how do they work in Next.js. So that is the whole picture of this day's workshop, right? Okay, now let's start. I'm gonna show this to you. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so this is a really rough mock-up of the app we're going to build. So as you know, we are building a secret sharing app. What we mean is, so you can enter your secret like a input box like this, and once you encrypt your secret, you're going to get a super secret link. It's going to be unique for your secret. It's going to have your message as well. So once you click on that link, it's going to open up a window that is going to show what the secret message you sent, right? So for example, this one says, hey, you look great today. So this would be a secret that we're also going to encrypt. So without this particular URL, no one else can access, even the developers. So even if you have access to the database, the message you will not be able to see the message. We're going to build it in such a way. So the another thing this will have is, as soon as this message is read, even the encrypted message from the server will be deleted. So this is our little secret app that we're going to build. It looks simple, but we are going to touch on various different of libraries, tools, and stuff. So that's that. So at any point, if you have any questions regarding anything, do not hesitate to post your query in the live chat. I will try my best to answer it as well. Okay, so let's get started, right? So I'd require you to have Node installed. You can check if you have it installed by going to your terminal or PowerShell or any command line you have and entering node-v. That will give you the Node version you have installed. Right. So this means I have installed Node as well. So when you install Node, you also get npm and npx along with it. Now, so as per our agenda, what we have next is the technologies we'll be using, right? So yeah, for building the UI, we'll be using React, Next, and Next is basically a framework of React. So you're technically writing React itself. So the next things will be used to build UI is Chakra UI. Chakra UI is a UI library that will provide us with customizable components that such as like input button, stuff like that, cards. So we'll use that to build our UI, and then we're going to use Firestore from Firebase, through which we're going to store the encrypted message, the keys to unlock it, and things like that. Mostly related to everything related to basically storing of data. We're going to use Firestore. Next, so in order to connect the Firestore with our app and our front end, we are going to use Next API routes. So that's basically within the Next framework, you can write your UI as well as APIs as well. So that's one of the great things about Next. You do not have to set up separate API, create backend or things like that. Then because of that, you will be writing the API routes as standalone functions. So these functions will be deployed as well, especially if we deploy it in providers like Vercel. They will be deployed as serverless functions. And more about serverless functions, we will learn about them in our next workshop. Cool. Yeah. So that's about the app and the technologies we're going to use. So yeah, without delaying much, let's get into the coding stuff, right? So Node is installed, and I hope you also have installed VS Code. Just if you haven't installed Node, just search for Node.js and go to their official website. Down you'll get an installer. Just go click next and stuff, and that's it. You'll have a Node installed. Similarly, VS Code as well. Okay. Now I am going to run this command npx create React app. So this command will bootstrap me a React app with required setup, dependency, and a little bit of code to kickstart the development. So npx create React app next takes a parameter which will be the app name. So I'm going to call our app React workshop demo. Cool. So now you can see that it's creating this directory within the current place I am, right? I'm in code learn. It's going to create a React app over here. It's going to install majorly 3 dependencies. So one is React, so through which we will actually build the React UI. Then we have React DOM. So React DOM is something that will connect our React code to the actual DOM, right? Then we have React script, which will come with the necessary scripts to so to run the React app and stuff. Okay, so let's go to our demo. Oh wait, looks like there was an error. Okay, I'll just remove some stuff from here. I think I'm out of space, that's why. Yes. Let's run the command again. Hopefully this time it gets installed. Okay, cool. So issue was we were actually lacking space in this particular partition. Cool. So as you can see, as soon as it's installed, it has given me instructions to how to use it. So this will start the development server. This will build the application. This is to run tests if you have any tests in your application. Okay. So yeah, this will also something that is going to remove some configuration files that were given by default. So after that, you'll have to do some stuff on your own to build and for the build command. Okay, now let's so since we're already in our workshop directory, let's do code dot. So we already have VS Code installed. This will open up VS Code in the current directory. Okay, we have it open now. Right, so I am going to do what they told me to run npm start. This should start the development server, and yep, here we are. So okay, to make it easy, without having to switch, I'm just going to have them in the same window, both the code and the browser and the output. So yeah, as we can see, create React app as given as with some boilerplate code. It's given as two main directories, src and public, and we have a node modules folder which has all the dependencies in it. So we are going to ignore it for now. Okay, so next, so we have a readme file. It is all about how to use this React scripts and stuff. Okay, then we have a package JSON. It shows all the dependencies we have, right? Okay, then we have log JSON, so we'll not worry about this. We have git ignore. So if you're using git, the files and folders mentioned here will be ignored to commit. So there will be some files you would not want to be in your git repository. So those stuff you'll have it in git ignore. Okay, great. Next we have public and src. Now this is actually a bunch of files that we actually don't need right now. So I'm just going to delete all of them. Yes, we are getting error. We will fix it. Okay, so if you remember from our last workshop that any app serving a server or website serving web servers would basically look for an index HTML file to serve. So let's first create that, right? We will, so that this React server can see that there is an index HTML page. So we'll create a basic HTML demo. So now the React server will try to look for an index.js, so which it should get from an src. So this index.js file will be considered like an entry point to our React app. Everything we will build, it will be then kind of be present at this file in a way. So let's create that. So now we see that there's no error because it has now these two things to serve and to render HTML, but we do not have any React code now. Right. So the way React works is it's going to take a node or an element on the HTML, and then it's going to render React on top of it. Or yes, okay. Looks like it. So we'll create an ID. So we create a div with ID root. Okay. Now we are going to create a root, basically. It's like this. Const root. But first we will need to import React DOM. From React DOM client. So since our app is going to be a single page application, it's going to render everything in one or in client in a single page. It will actually have only one page, but it can like simulate that it has multiple pages. Yes. Okay. So like we discussed, it will need a root an element on which it can render React. So let's specify the root. React DOM create root. It's going to take an element, right, which we will fetch with the document get element by id roots. Okay, now we have root. Yeah, let's say we want to render something. Root render. So render will take almost any JavaScript expression or React node. So let's just give hello world. See if that makes anything. Yeah, so this is it, the output has here. So now we have rendered a JavaScript expression into the HTML, right, with the help of React DOM. So React works on a programming concept called virtual DOM, which basically means you are maintaining a UI, right, an expected UI in memory, and React DOM will sync your copy of UI, the copy in the memory, to the actual DOM, so that you can have real-time updates from your components, from your React code to the DOM directly. Okay, now let's see what else we can render. So let's say I have an element. So now I'm going to call it h1. Okay, we have an error. Let's see what happened. Yeah. Okay. So we can store HTML in a way like this into variables. So technically speaking, this is not HTML, because if it was, this won't be like proper JavaScript, and this would break the program. What's essentially happening is this is getting transpiled into a JavaScript version that browsers can understand. So this is called as JSX, means basically you can also have expressions within these things, JavaScript expressions. So you can do that while with having curly braces. So let's try that. Hello world. It's, let's say, what's the time now, right? We'll create a new date object and we'll call a method to local time string. So this will give us a time at the moment in our local time. Okay, so it says 17:30, so it's 5:30. Okay, so you can have it like that. Now the thing about React is every component that is created like this is immutable. That means once it's created, we cannot modify to it directly. So with what we know so far, let's try to wrap this in a function. Okay, I'll give you an example why it can't be updated directly. Let's say we have a time like this, and we're actually doing this. Okay, and let's say we have a function set time that will update this time variable to the current time. Time equals to new date. and let's call this set time every second, right? We'll do that with set interval. Set interval will take two arguments. One will be the function you wanted to call, and for what interval do you want to keep calling. So what we're doing now is for every 1 second we're calling set time, and set time should be updating this variable every time it's called. And with that, this element should also be getting updated over here. Let's see if that happens. Okay, so we do not see that happening. However, let's see if it's actually getting updated. Let's log the time over here. Okay, we see that it's getting called every second, but it will not update it because every React element is immutable, right? Okay, so let's try to make it work in a different way. Okay, so what we'll do is we will render it near here. Okay, so this way we are creating a new element every 1 second and then updating the DOM with it. Let's see if this works. Okay, we can see that it's now getting updated. The problem with this is we cannot modularize it much, because this way we would have to create components that will then use things like set interval. Then we'll have to have a route for it every time. So for that we can use state variables. So state variables will be something based on which the component will know that it has to render. Okay, so for that, let's create a function. Let's call it clock, and clock will return the time. It's create a time, and it will say time to local time string, right? Okay, then we will pass this clock to root render. Let's have these things commented. We might need it later. Okay, now let's render this clock, right? So every function that returns a JSX, it kind of becomes a React element, so which you can call it like a normal how you would declare a HTML element. Okay, okay, I should be calling this. Okay, and now to make this updated every time, or update it in a way that this component re-renders, we're going to use something called use effect. Okay, so use effect is one of the hooks from React that we will use. For example, let's just say I use it, call it like this, and let's just log what the use effect returns. Okay, we are getting an error. Okay, let's just what's going on? Okay. Just because of this. Okay, what am I doing wrong? Code use effect and it throws me an error. My bad. I should have been using useState. Okay, let's see what is useState returning. So okay, it returns me two things. One is the first, so it's returning me an array. The first element is undefined. The second element in the array is a function. So the first element is going to be a state value. So every time we call a useState, it creates an independent state variable, which we can then use it in our components. And when that variable gets updated, the React DOM will re-render that component. Yeah, so that will be useState. So first element, we'll call it time and set time. Then useState also takes in a default value for its state variable. So we'll just give it a new date. Okay, and we'll render it like this: time to local time string. Okay. Now we'll call this. We'll set this timer within our component. So we will actually be updating the set time, right? Let's call this function update time because we have a naming conflict. Set time, we'll set it to a new date, right, which will be the current one. Okay. New date. Okay, it should be update time. Okay, there you have it. It's getting updated as every second now. Okay. Okay, next we have use effect. So use effect is another hook from React, which we can use to basically listen to a state variable and then run some functions that we need to. For example, let's say every time the time changes, we want to make some other things. Could be updating another text or could be updating another variable as well. So let's give it a try as well. Generally we would not use for something like this which our own state variables, but we would use it with variables from other hooks other than the ones we wrote within the component. So I'll just log time is updated. So every second you can see that it's getting updated. It's getting updated rather faster because every time there is a render, the set interval is also getting run, which means it's setting interval every second as well. So another thing about use effect is if it has 0 dependencies, such as this, it has 1 dependency time, we remove it, so then it will only render once the component gets rendered. So this way we can have our set interval over here, right? So which would mean it should mean that this set interval will be set only once when the component renders. So I'll restart this page. Okay, we close this and open again. Okay, so let's see how many times this use effect was called. Only once, as we can see. So which means if you have 0 dependencies in your use effect, it will only run the function once the component is rendered. So with that, we now complete the basics of React. So let's move on to Next.js basics. So if you guys have any questions until now regarding any of the hooks or how React works, do drop in the chat. Yes. Okay. Now similarly, how we created a React app, we can also create a Next app with the similar boilerplate creating CLI tool. So we'll call create Next app, we'll call it Next demo. Yes. So along with these two necessary libraries, this create Next app will also install Next. So again, we have run into no space. Remove the React workshop. Okay, let's try to create it again. It's already there, it says. Okay. So we will go through folder structure, accessing URL parameters with router. We'll create a couple of sample pages, not full page, but just to demonstrate the folder structure. Then we'll learn a little bit about API routes, SSG and SSR. Okay, so we have it. Let's open it from here itself. Next demo. Okay, now let's start the next app, right? Let's start. Wait, I should use npm render for this one. Okay, I now have Next app running. Okay, so Next is a library again built on top of React. So it comes with a specific folder structure which reflects the URL path. For example, this index.js page, index.js file would mean this would render at the home route or the root route of the app. So I have opened the root route. So if I make any changes over here, it will reflect on this page itself. Like let's say I replace welcome to Next.js with Learn workshop. Gets updated. Taking longer than usual. Okay. Not sure why this is happening. I'll just close it and open again. Close window. Okay, let's open it again. Code method, we'll open it in a VS Code. The VS Code is acting weird. Okay, let me try again. Okay, let me use another editor. Okay, now I have opened it in WebStorm. Okay, let's have it like this, right? So we can see the both code and the output. So in WebStorm, we can start scripts like this as well and run it. We'll reload. Okay. Not a page. What is this? Oh, this called. Okay, so we try to update this, right? Let's try it again. Okay, got updated. Cool. Yeah, so let's explore more about the pages directory, right? So let me create a page called product.js, right?
Project configurations files can be added to Git.
Okay, so if I create a JSX component, an element over here, this is the product page. I realized that now the font could be a lot small now. Let me fix that. Okay, hope this is enough. Now let me export this page. And now the thing about NextJS is the thing like we discussed, the files and folders in the pages would reflect as URL parameters as well. So if I go to /product, okay, this is product. Okay, let's try again. There, this is a product page. So what if you had rooted nested directories? So then you can do like this as well. Folder categories. I'll type again. Categories. Okay, and I'll have category product inside categories. So then you can access it like this, categories. There. that's how NextJS folder structure work. Okay, yeah, so let's try to use URL parameters, right? So suppose you had a product with an ID 123, right? So then by convention, or like most sites would have it something like category/product/123, right? So how would you deal with this kind of thing? So then what you can do is in categories folder, we'll create the folder product. Now this is the important part, that if this is going to be the path is going to be dynamic, then you will have to name it something like this. So in square brackets, you're going to name the whatever the parameter you're going to call it. I'll just call it ID. So this is how it'll look. Okay, so I'll just copy paste the same over here, and yeah, at 1 2 3 I should see this. Okay, next let's see how we can get this, right? This one is dynamic. This is a dynamic ID or dynamic path to which we'll get the ID now. So we'll get use router from next router, and we can access it. First we call the router equals to use router dot query dot id. There, if you update it, so that is getting updated. Now if you had more query parameters, such as other things like I don't know, a subcategory, you could also access it. Yep, so that's how you can interact with the query parameters, and that's basically how you would handle dynamic routes. Now this is important for our project because so we will be taking a message ID that's been encrypted, and with that ID we're going to fetch the message and show to the user. So that's where we will be using a router functionalities like this. Now this use router is a hook, right? Which means you can only use them in a functional component only. Now remember, when we learned use effect, that we wouldn't generally use it with an external variable. So that's where you so you can use it at places like this where you want to watch the router. Yeah, so I think we covered till this here. So we have NextJS API routes next. So we have little time. Let's do API routes in the next workshop. But let's look at SSG and SSR right now. So I will use this to get us the concept of SSG and SSR. I'm going to try to demonstrate how it works. Okay. So with the introduction of UI libraries and frameworks like React, Vue, and other stuff, which are essentially single page applications that entirely run on basically clients or users' browsers. What happens with that is that would sometimes take a great toll on the browsers, and as well as the main concern was basically the SEO stuff and the indexing as well, because web crawlers that index the pages. So web crawlers are basically used by search engines to get information about pages of every website, so that it can help when user searches for something, hey, this is the page that matches your search query. So that's why web crawlers use. So what happens with client-side application is it will not give us the entire HTML, right? In the React app, as we saw, it would only send the index HTML and a JavaScript file that would have the React code. So then after the HTML file is delivered to the browser, the React code will then run and create the user interface in the user's browser. So with SSR and SSG, this can be then moved back to server, like as it used to be many years back, right? Even still, many of the pages are completely statically built. Complete HTML, SSS would be completely written at first, and then the server would just deliver them directly to the user's own request. Okay, so SSR and SSG. SSR, we have SSG here. So SSR stands for server-side rendering and SSG refers to server-side generation. So SSR, how it works is, so the React code we write, it will be run in the server itself before it actually is delivered to the user. So if we have this code, right? So this code would be run in a server, right? This would be converted to a HTML, complete HTML, and then sent over to the browser. That's how SSR works. So the main difference between SSR and SSG is SSR runs on every request basically. So if you're requesting this product with an ID, that's mostly when you would use an SSR, because this will depend on a user query, or it would be depend on different kind of API request, or just URL request to the server. Then we have SSG. So what SSG will do is it will generate all the pages that is required at the build time itself. SSR would do it in the runtime and SSG would do it in the build time. So when to use SSR and when to use SSG? So SSR, like we talked about, would be when the content would depend on the user request. SSG would be something that is always going to be static, such as when you could use SSGs, such as you have a blog, so then you would need all your blog posts to be rendered at the build time itself, so it is easy to index. So how does it work in NextJS? So NextJS gives us two functions, a few functions that we can use at the server side as well. So for SSR we have get server side props. So what this function does is it will return props to be generated for a particular page, and then that prop will be passed to the product. For example, for this product, let's say we write get server side props, and the server side props function will get the product ID from the URL and then pass it to this function, right? So this element, so this would then render the product, right? So then next we'll send the rendered HTML to the requested client. So that's how the get server side props would work. Now SSG would have a function called get static props. So this would be run at the time of building for every page. So then it will generate the content for it. So it would work similarly to get server side props. It would then pass the props to the element, and it would render, and it would create the HTML file to be served within the build itself. So we will look more deeper into implementing this in the next workshop. So this would be just the concept of SSR, SSC, and why would we need it. Okay, with that, I think we have covered our agenda. So before we end it, I would like to once again talk about the Discord server. Do join it, and you can participate in challenges through which you can get much prizes and other stuff. Yeah, so let's wrap it then. Thank you all for coming. Do attend the next workshop where we'll actually be building the complete application and also hosted as well, right? Cool. Okay, thank you guys. Bye. Take care.